This episode of the SloopCast brought to you by the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. If you haven't been to themadcanadianbarbecuecompany.com in a while, you will now notice that he has it divided up into like what you're going to use the rub for. You got chicken rubs, you got beef rubs, you got pork rubs, you got rib rubs, you have vegetable rubs. And a lot of these spices are versatile and you can find them in a multitude of, is that correct English? You'll find them in multiple categories because, you know, like he has the old fashioned under rib rubs, but I know I've been using it on chicken. That's all I'm saying. But you can find all of his wonderful spices at themadcanadianbarbecue.com. Use promo code SloopCast10, that is SloopCast10 at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. themadcanadianbarbecuecompany.com. They have your butts covered. This episode of the SloopCast is also brought to you by Wolf's Ridge Brewing. Wolf's Ridge Brewing has added, they've grown. I think they've just grown so much since they started working with us. I'm not taking credit for that by any means. It kind of sounded like I was saying that. I'm not saying that. But they've added so many new cans to their lineup. They've added delivery to multiple major markets in the state of Ohio. You can go on wolfsridgebrewing.com. You can go to their beer selections. They've actually just added a build your own pack. So if you just, like, maybe if you're looking at a smoked lager and you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I want to buy 6 of those because I'm not sure if I'm going to like it or not. You will. By the way, you will. Or maybe you're looking at one of the other beers and you're like, I'd like to have a couple of those. I don't know if I want 6 of those. You can now go into the build your own pack section and just say, give me 2 of those. Give me 1 of those. It's highly customizable. It's, I think, a lot of fun. It was my instinct to say a lot of fun, but maybe that says more about me than it does about anything else. I'll give you more details on what some of those beers are in later ad breaks. But you can find all of this and more at wolfsridgebrewing.com. That is wolfsridgebrewing.com. We've got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the SloopCast. How are you doing today? What? No, Kyle. Oh, no, don't leave, you guys. Don't. No, there's no Tony. No, just we're doing a minisode today. That's all right. We're doing a minisode. It's mini because it's just me, which I hate doing. So if I get a little weird later, that's why. But we're just going to do some quick questions. Some quick Ask SloopCast questions. I said on last week's episode that, we're probably just going to skip this week. Just not going to do an episode. Maybe I'll air an old episode. I don't know. But, we're just going to take that episode off. Well, here I am anyway because I just can't stop. See, there I am getting weird. I don't have Kyle to, rein me in. But yeah, even though I said, hey, we're not going to do an episode this week, I found that some of you just kept sending me questions anyway. I couldn't stop you from sending me questions. So even though I was like, I'm not doing an episode this week, people were like, Ask SloopCast. And Austin, you know who you are. But no, it's not just Austin. In fact, we have a question from a new listener this week. In fact, his name is on Twitter. I assume his name's Jared. It's not me, I promise. But his name is also Jared, and I will say, Jared, and I'm speaking to you, the asker of the Ask SloopCast question. Jared, you spell your name correctly. I don't know how you feel about these things, but I am highly, get this, and I know this is out of character, I am highly opinionated about how you spell the name Jared. And if you don't spell it Jared, first off, this isn't your fault, it is your parents' fault. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry, actually. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. This is not even a sorry, not sorry situation. This is just a straight up not sorry situation. So, Jared, your parents, I don't know anything about your parents, but they did at least one thing right, and they spelled your name correctly. And for that, they deserve at least some credit. Right? I think so. At Jared, Jared. See, here's the thing. If you use 2 R's, that's jarred. That's what you do to a tomato. That's already a word, and it is not a name. Alright? You Jareds with you 2 R's. Go slap your parents. Then go to the courthouse and get your name spelled right. Jared the Buckeye asks. And don't even start me with you G's. Seriously, you're going to bring G to the party? And you I's. You RIDs. Get out of here. He's at JaredThe Buckeye. I'm not going to spell Buckeye for you. At Jared the Buckeye on Twitter. This is why we need Kyle on the show. He says, I have a question. If any Big Ten all-decade team list without Ezekiel Elliott as the top running back seem fraudulent? And the answer to that question is yes. I will say this, is that Ezekiel Elliott did have one advantage over Barkley and Taylor, who were the 2 running backs who made the first team all Big Ten yada 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 thing from the Big Ten network. Ezekiel Elliott had one incredibly unfair advantage that none of the other running backs who made this list had, which is that he never had to play against Ohio State's defense. He never had to play against the Ohio State defense. I mean, Barkley had, I think in 3 games against Ohio State, I think he had 1 really good game and 2 bombs, if I'm remembering that correctly, which I very well may not be. And Jonathan Taylor, I think, had 2 opportunities last season, and, well, let's just say Ohio State won the games. All right, next question. From Austin Information, or Austin Graham, depending upon which service you're checking him out on. It's actually Austin Formation, but I say that just to... we have a bunch of questions here from Austin Graham. Who is the previous Buckeye recruit who you had huge expectations for, but didn't pan out? We actually had a discussion about this in the Discord, because this is where he asked the question. You can go to patreon.com, something Sloopcord, Sloopcast, something Patreon, something Sloopcast. You guys can figure it out. And then a lot of names were thrown around, a lot of really good names of just, and like, I think a lot of you guys can maybe, you're all thinking of like that highly touted recruit who you were expecting to do all of these things, but then struggled to get on the field. And I think those are all good answers. Absolutely, those are all good answers. I want to go out of the box a little bit and say Terrell Pryor. Yeah, that's right. Quarterback starts his freshman year, and I'm still going to put Terrell Pryor on this list. He came here to win a national title, and what happens is that he and Jim Tressel, let's be very clear, it's mostly Jim Tressel's fault, gets the program suspended, gets a bowl ban, can't participate his senior year, doesn't win a national title, gets Tressel fired, gets Tressel show banned. Like, you can be mad at a high school kid who the recruiting services overranked if you want to. I'm gonna put my focus on Terrell Pryor. All right, another one from Austin. What would you rename the Washington Redskins, and why is it the Washington Buckeyes? If we're going to rename an institution, that's a little lofty. If we're going to rename a team the Buckeyes, then I think that maybe should be the Cleveland Indians, the Negro League, and that's the term, okay? Team, the baseball team in Cleveland were called the Buckeyes. Cleveland Buckeyes. Major League Baseball team. I'm all for it. But as far as the Redskins goes, there's been a lot of support for the Red Tails, which are named after the Tuskegee Airmen, which I think would be great. In fact, I'm on record as far as this should be great, because when the Columbus Destroyers came back to Columbus for, is it just a single year of Arena League football? Did it completely fold up? I don't think it went well. And then, a lot of stuff's happened since then. So I'm not sure what the future of the Columbus Destroyers are. But when they came in, Red Tails was a name I was pushing for back then for the Columbus team, because the Tuskegee Airmen were stationed, I believe, at Rickenbacker. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And for those of you who maybe don't know, that's like Ohio's, or Central Ohio's other airport. Used to be a military, I think an Air Force base. I think that's probably a fair assumption to make. I really just sort of panicked there for a second if it was an Air Force base. It's an airport. It probably was. But yeah, it's not an Air Force base anymore, if it ever was. Now it's more of a freight airport, but does also do some. But anyway, point is, it's down near Lockbourne, Ohio, which is just outside of Columbus. And I thought the Red Tails is a great name. I continue to think that the Red Tails are a great name. And as far as the Redskins go, you get to keep the red, much like, because for those of you who maybe aren't old enough to remember or care enough about MAC football, the Miami Redhawks were once upon a time ago the Miami Redskins. So they just changed the name from the Redskins to the Redhawks. And this sort of feels like the same thing. You're going to keep that red, but then just change it up a bit and go with the Red Tails. That feels like a really easy move. Another one from Austin. What's your dream car? I'm not a car guy. And again, this was another one that spurned a lot of spurned? That's not the right word. This is another one that created a lot of discussion. I couldn't think of a better word. It created a lot of discussion in the Discord, and like classic cars. Everyone kept, I'm not that guy. I'm a creature of convenience. And like someone's like, oh, I want this 57 and I'm like, does it have Bluetooth? Does it have air conditioning? I want the amenities, and I want it to go fast. And if it does those two things, we're good to go. I'm not that guy. Sorry. He also asks, I basically told the Discord, hey, if you guys give me enough questions, I'll do this minisode, and Austin got excited. He asks, if you were to do a show, or if you were to be on a show similar to Naked and Afraid, I'm naked and afraid right now. This is why I don't put the video on YouTube. What current Buckeye would you take with you? What all-time Buckeye? I don't want to touch this question. Especially like, hey, guy in his mid-30s, what teenager would you like to go be naked alone with in the woods? This feels like a question I shouldn't answer. I answer this question, and what's his face from Catch a Predator is going to be asking me to take a seat. I'm not touching this one, Austin. I am not touching this one. Hey, and now that I've made jokes about awful things, what better time to bring up our sponsors again? The Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. I'm sorry, Mad Canadian. I go right from like dirty joke into your ads. And now I have to refrain from using the word rub. So chicken seasoning, I'm going to take a look in the kitchen, Lord help me, the chicken seasoning, where you can find the Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter is a finishing salt, has lime and chili pepper in it. So it's obviously, it's a salt, obviously. It's not, a lot of the stuff is more like a pre-season, like a dry rub. The Mad Hatter is a little more of a after the fact. It's chili, it's lime, it's salt, it's fantastic. Never forget about the Four Horsemen or the Discord. They're both 4 pepper blends. They're both incredibly tasty. The Discord has a sweet base. The Four Horsemen has more of a salty base. He puts the Kerry steak in the chicken seasoning rubs. I mean, I thought it was for steak, but he says it's for chicken too. The Ope is in the chicken seasoning rubs. It's smoked ranch. You're from Ohio. You like smoked ranch. Don't act like you don't. And then there is the savory, which, like, if you're going to do a pulled pork or a pulled chicken, or a shredded pork or a shredded, like that, when you talk about the savory, that's what comes into mind for me. Oh, there's a page too. Apparently all of his stuff goes good on chicken. All of the Mad Canadian stuff goes good on chicken. He also includes the Sonoran Heat, the Cajun, and the S&P Bud. The S&P Bud and the Sonoran Heat are like your go-tos. Those are your universal, can go on, like if you're gonna grill up a boot, or maybe something less cliche, if you're gonna grill up a boot, I'm probably going to either recommend the Sonoran Heat or the S&P Bud. He doesn't have a boot section on the website, but if you go to the madcanadianbarbecue.com, you can use the promo code SloopCast10, that is SloopCast10 at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. That's the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. They have your butts covered. This episode of the Sloopcast is also brought to you by Wolf's Ridge Brewing. Wolf's Ridge Brewing, like I said, always coming out with new beers. Two of the new ones I've yet to try, but really want to get my hands on. Actually, three I've yet to try. I really want to get my hands on. There's the Yeah Mate. I'm not gonna try the full Australian. It's not gonna happen. But it is a hazy IPA. It's in a tall can. Two of the flavor profiles. Wow, two of the flavor profiles on this can. One of them says Citra. So okay, that one's, a hazy IPA is going to be a little citrusy. That makes a lot of sense. And then one of the other ones they had on there is Cashmere. Now I'm just going to assume that that's a statement not on the flavor, but on the texture. I think that's a safe assumption. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, a tall can of a hazy IPA, that's nice, but man, I think if I'm going to get a tall can, I want a double IPA. Well, then we have the Oh Hell Yeah. The Oh Hell Yeah, that is their hazy double. Oh, it's a hazy double IPA. I'm a huge fan of double IPAs. The double IPA might be my favorite style of beer. I've yet to check out the Oh Hell Yeah. I'm gonna start doing that here real soon. As soon as I can find some, and if I can't find some, I'll just buy it online. I live in Columbus. Why would I not just, you know what? I'm just gonna buy some online. And then the third one I want to mention is called the World Map. Now I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't always know how to pronounce this. Not World Map. I know how to pronounce World Map, but it's a tropical gose. Gose? Is that the Gose? Guys, this is the Sloopcast. I don't know how to pronounce stuff. This is established. But it has flavor profiles of like a mango and a grapefruit. There's some lemongrass and some coriander in there. I've not yet tried this one either. I'm really looking forward to it. And they just have, I've lost count. There's a lot of beer on here. There's also the mixed lager 6-pack, the summer seasonal 6-pack. I had someone on Twitter ask me this week, what's a good summer beer for someone who lives in Columbus? I'm like, the Citrus Surf. It's an easy drinking IPA. Kind of like, I want a shandy, but I want a real beer. I have the Citrus Surf for you. Will remind you of a shandy, but it's not a shandy. It's a real beer. It's an IPA. But if you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I want it. Well, it's an easy drinking IPA. It's the best of both worlds. You got to check out that Citrus Surf. All of this and a lot more can be found at wolfsridgebrewing.com. That is wolfsridgebrewing.com. All right, I have some more questions in our minisode. This is our Ask Sloopcast minisode. Austin asks, orange juice with pulp, some pulp, or extra pulp? Listen, if it doesn't have pulp in it, I feel like I'm just drinking Kool-Aid. That's the fact that it's like, what's the point? In my mind, and maybe this is crap because it's just a thing I've believed for a long time, but have never actually fact-checked, but because I've believed it a long time, it's gotta be true. The little pulp pieces probably make it healthier. Maybe it's fiber, maybe it's extra vitamins. I don't know. I've made this up inside of my head, and I still just kind of believe it, even though I have no evidence. Like, it's got to be better for you, right? Because regular orange juice is basically like, well, we're just going to take all of the sugar out of the orange, but we're going to leave behind all of the fiber. And it's like, I don't know, like it's a thing that we kind of all say, oh, it's healthy. It's an orange. What could be, it's an orange. It's a fruit. It's healthy, right? I don't know that that's true. Maybe you should just eat an orange instead. And you know, so maybe if there's some pulp in there, maybe that's a little bit closer to eating an actual orange. I don't even believe me at this point. Next question. What do you think, bearing bias as much as possible, is the greatest single moment in the history of sport? Oh boy. This one, I should have researched this one. The greatest single moment in the history of sport. First thing that comes to mind is Jesse Owens in Berlin. You got Mr. Hitler out there, and I call him Mr. Hitler. We're not on a first name basis. You got Mr. Hitler out there trying to talk about how the white people and the Aryan people are the best type of people. Hitler did a lot of bad things, but he was one of the... going out on a limb on that one. But he actually was one of the first people to like take the Olympics like really seriously. Because the modern Olympics was only started somewhere around the turn of the last century. I want to say maybe the 1910s. In that, it might only be like 100 years old. I'm not sure. But the modern Olympics, you know, we haven't been doing an Olympics every 4 years since the Greeks did it. The modern Olympics aren't that old. And Hitler was one of the first people to like take the Olympics really seriously because he saw it as an opportunity to be like, yo, here are my guys. Check out my pasty Aryans. They're going to be faster than everybody. And because he took the Olympics so seriously, and no one else really was yet at that time, that he was just going to roll over the Olympics. And then here comes Jesse Owens and smoked them. And then, you know, everything was fine for black people after that. No, unfortunately. And then after that, Hitler decided he was wrong and stopped talking about how the Aryans were so great. So I don't know. Maybe not. Miracle on Ice comes to mind. It's like nothing changed. Best single sports moment in history. Maybe it's not a single game or a single thing like that, but maybe it's maybe it's not like a single moment or a single game, but maybe it's Jackie Robinson or any number of football players. And, you know, there wasn't necessarily like a single player who broke the color barrier in football because there really wasn't one. Like I know Ohio State, for example, had an African-American football player on their very second team. So like there never was a barrier to be broken per se. I don't believe the NFL ever had a formal color barrier that was broken. You know, I think like if you're talking about the SEC, and this isn't just me taking shots at the SEC, you can look this up. There were SEC teams whose first black football players weren't on rosters until I want to say like the early 1970s. I think would be like 80, 90 years after there were black football players playing at most of the Big Ten schools. I'm way off track. Single greatest moment in the history of sport. I was trying to make a larger point and I don't think I did that. So I think I'm just going to move on now. This is normally where Kyle would bail me out with an excellent answer, but no Kyle. So I think I'm just going to move on to the next question. Duncan asks us, there's a lot about fields running routes for the Elite 11 camps. Why continually run camps where players interact with I'm not reading something here correctly. Why continually run camps where players interact with us juniors and seniors so the coaching staff... You're very confusing right now. Or I'm dumb. One of the two things are happening. So the coaching staff can be involved in workouts beyond NCAA permitted hours. Everyone already knows voluntary workouts are mandatory at the Power 4 plus Clemson / Notre Dame level? I'm going to have to reread this again to myself because I'm missing the question. Oh, I see what he's saying. Why not continually just run camps where players interact just like with each other? I think is what he's asking. And like that does, maybe not camps, but nothing prevents the players from just like getting together and doing stuff. I know when Braxton Miller for his senior year made the move to wide receiver, he was working on that like in secret with his fellow, soon to not be fellow quarterbacks and with some of the other wide receivers. And there was a lot of like side training taking place by Braxton Miller to do that. So yeah, it does, you can't call them camps. They do get together and they do work on stuff. I think is what you were asking. I'm not sure. I'm moving on to the next question. Guys, this is a mess today, and I'm sorry. I'm hoping you're enjoying just me floundering, because that's kind of what's happening right now. I just told myself I'm going to record, and I'm going to talk, and I'm not going to leave any big pauses. And I'm just going to keep going no matter what. I'm just going to answer the questions, and I'm just going to keep going no matter what. And then I'm just barely going to edit it, and then I'm going to post it, and we'll see what happens. And then I'm just going to be very thankful for Kyle. That's the plan. All right, this one's from Dinger. He and Duncan also sending these via the Discord. And again, you can join the Discord by just Googling Patreon and Sloopcast and you'll find it. You guys know how to work Google and you don't need me holding your hands. Like even if I told you what the URL was, by the time I said / and then kept going, you'd be like, screw it, I'm just going to Google it. I know that's what I do, and I know that's what you do. Now, who just types a URL anymore? This isn't the 90s. We have Google, Dinger asks. How would you rank our position coaches? Oh boy. How would you rank them among their peers at the position? Of those that could improve, how so? Who do you think are most likely to need replacement, and who might that be? Sort of extending what you were saying about Kevin. Yeah, on the last episode, we talked about how Kevin Wilson deserves a job and should have a job and all of that. I don't know if I was going to rank. I feel like this is the sort of thing that gets me in trouble by just sort of like going after a coach. But screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to sit here and rank all of them, but I know that there is angst among the fan base in regards to Coach Stud. It does feel like a lot of Ohio State's offensive line misses in the recruiting world have been along the offensive line. And from a pure recruiting standpoint, you could probably pretty confidently say that Coach Stud is the weak link among the recruiters. Greg Madison doesn't do a lot of active recruiting anymore, but I think they knew, and he still does do recruiting, but I don't think they rely on him to recruit in the same way that they do rely on Coach Stud to recruit. And in a lot of Ohio State's big misses, you can look at J.C. Latham most recently or go back to Jackson Carman, have been along the offensive line. Is all of that angst, is all of that frustration towards Coach Stud legitimate? From a pure recruiting standpoint, yeah. And I think that becomes especially true if they don't get Leigh. Which might be unfair because they're really far behind on Leigh. Like really, really far behind on Leigh. They're coming in late on Leigh. There's a lot of ground to be made up. And then we also have to look at Jagger Burton, and Ohio State got some good news a couple weeks ago. Jagger Burton pushed back his recruitment, which is great news for Ohio State. Had he stuck to his original recruitment date, Ohio State was not going to get Jagger Burton. One of the rules of recruiting is if a kid's made his If a kid announces his commitment date, he's made up his mind. Therefore, if we take that and we rearrange the words a little bit, if a kid pushes back his recruitment date, that means that he has not made up his mind. And had he stuck with his made up mind, it wouldn't have been Ohio State. If Ohio State misses out on both Leigh and both Burton, and if they don't get some really good guys to replace those two players, it doesn't look good for Stud. It really doesn't. Now, that being said, Coach Stud is not a bad coach from a development standpoint. Ohio State has done really well putting NFL players or putting college players in the NFL. So I don't think that's completely... He's not deficient anywhere. Like, he's not bad at recruiting, and he's by no means bad at being a developer of talent or bad at being a discerner of talent. I don't think any of that is true, but I don't know if he's like the Ohio State level of great. And you know, maybe that's unfair as far as talent development goes, because he has had some really good players, and they've gone on to play in the NFL. It's not necessarily a ton of first round draft picks the way we've seen out of like the defensive backs and the defensive linemen and with the wide receivers and with the running backs. It's a lot of it's more mid round picks, but not always. There's still some really nice picks in there. It's just, if you're going to be at Ohio State, I think being pretty good isn't good enough, and I think that Stud's pretty good. And I hope that this recruiting cycle ends the way that he wants it to end, that I want it to end, that you want it to end, that Ryan Day wants it to end, in a recruiting class that could still very well be one of the greatest of all time. There's one glaring weakness in this recruiting class, and it's the offensive line. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that. And that is our last Ask Sloopcast question. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the end of the show. You can follow me at Sloopcast on Twitter, at Sloopcast on Instagram. You can follow Kyle at The Crazy One, crazy with a K and one spelled out. That's right, I know how to do it too, Kyle. Get off your high horse. I know how to say your Twitter name. Make sure to check out our stuff and all the other great stuff over at the Buckeye Scoop. Make sure to check out some of the other amazing podcasts over at the Buckeye Scoop. You can go into your podcast app of choice and search Buckeye Scoop, and I think all of them show up. I'm almost sure that they're all there. You can also check us out on YouTube. You can check out the Buckeye Scoop page over at YouTube. Check out the Dream Season that Kurt Burton's doing. It's all a lot of great stuff. And check out the Teespring store. We have like 30-ish unique designs over at the Teespring store. T-shirts, posters, game posters, which are different than regular posters. No, they're not. Just a lot of cool stuff over there. Go check out the Teespring page. I should probably do a promo code here for the Teespring page soon. Check out next week's episode. I'll probably have a promo code lined up for you. And I think that's it. This is where we do Kyle's call. No, Kyle. Kyle's Corner. Kyle's Corner. Kyle's Corner. Nah, I got nothing. Tonight's ending music will be by a band, I believe, from the Cleveland area. They're definitely from Ohio. I think it's the Cleveland area. If it's not Cleveland, then maybe it's Akron. I forget. It's fine. You can Google them and figure it out for yourself. Once again, I don't need to hold your hand through everything. All right? You're a bunch of adults and you know how to use Google. God, quit making me do all your work. Thank you for putting up with me this episode. Thank you. Check out Narrow Arrow. You can find them on Bandcamp. You can find them on YouTube. And you can find them right here at the end of the show. So with all of that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course support your local podcasters. This is Narrow Arrow.
I'll never find lucid dreams ever reoccurring. They're always blurry, filled with signs that I can't read, but I'm always passing, so I started wearing glasses when I sleep. All I did was bend the frame. I bend some back, but they don't fit the same. And that's just one lesson you take from making fake attempts to change.
I'd like to thank Wolf's Ridge Brewing for sponsoring today's episode. Wolf's Ridge Brewing, let's see, you know what, let's do a mega read. Everyone ready for this? You can buy either a 4-pack or a 6-pack of the following beers. The Daybreak, which is a coffee ale. The Pack IPA, which it's an IPA. It's right there in the name. The Heartlandia, an American lager. The Citrus Surf, I already talked about it. The Leisurely, it's a raspberry wheat ale. The Heffenwedge, which is a fruited orange Heffenweiser. The Gold Standard, it's a lager. It kind of tastes like French bread. It's great. The Modern Lager, more of a traditional lager. The smoked lager that begins with a B that I don't know how to pronounce. The Ripple, which is more of a straightforward IPA. The Crispy, which is a Pilsner. The Hammer Toss, which is a Munich Dunkel. I don't know German stuff, you guys. The Oak Aged Tiltback. It's a red lager. It's oak aged. You can't go wrong there. We already talked about the Oh Hell Yeah. We already talked about the Yeah Mate. We already talked about the World Map. Then there's the Fury brand. That's a tall can. It's a cherry vanilla Berliner. The Cinnamon Toast Brunch. It tastes like cinnamon toast brunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's right there in the name. It's easy to say, obviously. The Creamsicle. It tastes like a creamsicle. The Cherry Cordial. It's chocolate, it's cherry, it's fantastic. The Dire Wolf, which is their Imperial Stout. I can't talk today. So since I can't talk, let's talk about the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. We already went through some of the chicken rubs before. Let's see, which one should we do this time? Let's go beef. Beef rubs. Oh, one of the new ones, one of my favorite. It's called the Old Fashioned. The Old Fashioned, it's bourbon, it's cherry, It's kind of like the cordial, but instead of being chocolate and cherry, it's bourbon and cherry. It's like the drink. That's pretty fantastic. And if you don't think so, go to hell. The Mad Hatter. We talked about the Mad Hatter on the previous ad read. It's salt, it's citrus, it's spicy pepper. It's fantastic. The Kerry steak seasoning. See, now it's in the beef rubs. I feel a little bit better with the world that the Kerry steak, now that's over in the beef rubs. The Brits blend, an amazing Southwest blend. I use it in my salsa. I use it in my chili. It's one of my favorite things. We already talked about the Four Horsemen. Oh, the coffee and Q. It's barbecue, but there's coffee in it, which I know sounds like, oh, it's coffee and it's Q. It's a barbecue. It's got coffee in it. But until you've put it on a steak, shut the hell up. Like, I know it sounds just like, oh, it's okay. I get it. It tastes like coffee, but it's also a barbecue seasoning. Yeah, I get it. But it sounds simple, but it tastes fantastic. Then there's the Cajun, which we talked about, the smoked, which we talked about, and then everyone's favorite boot leather flavoring, the S&P Bud. All of this and more can be found at the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where you can use 10% off your entire, where you can use the promo code SloopCast10 to get 10% off your entire order. The Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, we've got your butts covered.